I'd like to welcome everyone here. My name is Greg Ziogas. I'm taking the place of Byron Trito tonight. We are meeting here tonight to celebrate the 20th anniversary and to induct into the Hall of Fame the class of 2018. I'd like to send out a special thanks to all the members of the committee for the Sports Hall of Fame. If at this time they would please stand, and everyone give them a round of applause. All the committee members, please stand. Also, I'd like to send out a special thank you to Michael Beck and Bob O'Day, whose hard work in Byron's absence really made this night possible. So thank you very much, Bob and Mike. In 1998, Byron Trito and a small group of Plainville sports enthusiasts planted the seeds for this hall, and it has grown into a Plainville tradition and a sports reunion. Noticeably absent tonight is Byron Trito. Byron is the energy and the heartbeat of the Hall of Fame. It was Byron's vision, along with the guidance of Ivan Wood and Walt Majak, that forged one of the best halls of fame in the state of Connecticut. Byron is continuing to battle a series of health issues, and it will be with us hopefully next year. He sends his congratulations and well wishes to all, and we do the very same for him. Thank you very much, Byron. At this time, I'd like to call up Vic Paradis, who will do the invocation.
Let's just pause for just a moment and let's offer up thanks for this gathering. Every year, I call this my family now. Every year, the family grows, and it's a great thing. Well, let's pray together. Father, we just come to you and we ask that you would bless this food, bless this time together. And Lord, those that are sick in body, we ask for help and mercy for them. And we just thank you, Lord, for this family. And I do say that in all sincerity. This is my family, Lord, and please bless each one. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
At this time, I think Nucci's is ready to start serving, and once the meal is completed, we'll get back with the program. Thank you. First group of people on our agenda tonight are the Founders Scholarship Award winners. And for that, I'd like to introduce Lisa Mandeville, who will make the presentation. Lisa?
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Sports Hall of Fame Scholarship Committee, I would like to congratulate our Byron Trito Founders Award recipients, 2018 PHS graduates, Carolyn St. Pierre and Hannah Zalesko. Yes, very well deserved. Both of them epitomized the spirit for which the award was established: loyalty, commitment, and dedication to both PHS athletics and teammates. While neither of them could attend the festivities tonight, please join me in recognizing two outstanding young women, Caroline St. Pierre and Hannah Zalesko.
Next, we are going to present the Distinguished Service Award. This award is given to a caring, genuine model for community support. This year's recipient is Ken Nazo, who will be introduced by Bob O'Day, a recipient of the DSA award himself. Bob?
Thank you, Greg. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all of the inductees tonight. You should be very proud, and your families, I'm sure, are very proud. It's a distinct honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Nazo. My family goes way back with him. My father worked for his father. My daughter worked for Kenny. And even to the point, we bought the house that they used to rent in Vermont. The Nazo family, the good that they have done reaches so far, but so quietly, none of us will ever realize what they do. So without any more introduction, I'd like to thank Kenny and introduce him as a DSA recipient.
I'd like to thank the board for this honor. I appreciate it. And I'd like to say, I think it's a wonderful thing that you do, that this organization's been going on for 20 years, honoring the athletes at Plainville High. But I think something more important, I think this year, you're honoring a team, 58 track, but more important, you're honoring the girls from the Blue Angels back in the 40s. I think that's really, really wonderful. I think that Plainville, back 70 years ago, did something that's very commonplace today. And I think there are quite a few of them in the audience tonight. I'd like to say thank you for everything. Everyone have an enjoyable evening. It's a long agenda.
Next, I'd like to introduce Frankie Zunzik, who will give us a brief history of the Plainville Sports Hall of Fame.
Tonight, we celebrate not only 10 new inductees, but the 20th anniversary of the Plainville Sports Hall of Fame. What started as a vision of Byron to celebrate the players, coaches, teams, and people who have excelled as players or helped bring success to Plainville sports has exceeded beyond anything he could have imagined. The huge crowd tonight is a great example of this success. In the 20 years of the Hall of Fame, there has been 165 inductees, with every decade beginning with the 1930s represented. They include 124 athletes, including 3 who are also selected for their coaching, 12 coaches, 17 DSA recipients, 12 teams, and the Founder Award to Byron. Plainville is a small town in size and population, but I would say it's a giant in high school sports. The CIAC has a website that lists the champions in each sport by high school. Plainville High has been a state champion 36 times, including 12 times in football, 11 times in baseball, and 8 times in basketball. I think that's impressive. When a team becomes a state champion or has success, they bring pride to the players, the coaches, the team, the school, and the entire town. Sports creates a unique and special bond with the players and coaches. The time spent in practice, in locker rooms, on bus rides, and in games builds friendships and memories that last a lifetime. When players become teammates, they are forever connected. It can be seen through the people in this room. I have some memories about Plainville High sports that I'd like to share with you. I am a sports fan. I have lived in Plainville my entire life, and I'm over 67 years old, and I've been following Plainville sports for my whole life. I remember traveling to Yale, to UConn, to Southern Connecticut to watch Plainville High in tournament games and state championship basketball games in the late 50s and 60s when Earl Jackson, Bill Lasher, Rusty Camp, and their teammates were year after year one of the best in the state. I remember going to basketball games at the high school, and overflow crowds from the gym would file into the auditorium to watch the game on closed-circuit television. Going to a high school game was an event. I remember Plainville beating Southington in 1971 at Southington and going back to the high school as the team returned. And there was a big crowd waiting to greet them as the heroes that they were. Plainville only defeated Southington in football 8 times in 65 games, but it was a great rivalry against a town that was much bigger than Plainville. I remember Coach Ron Jones, who brought baseball state championships to Plainville High in 1983 and 1984, racing to the backstop after the 1983 state championship to ask the radio announcer to give a shout out to his father-in-law, who was not able to be at the game due to health issues. I remember Coach Lisa Mandeville jumping into the arms of her assistant coach and husband Lou after her girls basketball team won the state championship in 2001. I remember Coach Freeman celebrating each of his 5 baseball state championships as if each were his first. I remember watching R.J. Anderson at quarterback for the Syracuse Orangemen on TV, where he played and starred after high school. I was proud when his high school was listed as Plainville High School. More championships will be won at Plainville High, and maybe even this year. One thing is certain, win or lose, the bonds and friendships of the teammates and coaches that sports creates will continue. The memories will last a lifetime, and the players, coaches, teams, and people that help with the success will be celebrated by the Hall of Fame. I would like to conclude with a motto that I learned from Lisa. Once a Blue Devil, always a Blue Devil.
Thank you, Frank. Nice job. The Blue Angels were first brought to the attention of Byron Trito by Mary Olson. They were the groundbreakers for women's sports from 1945 to 1947 at Plainville High School. Many of the girls are here tonight with us, and who better to introduce them but our 2001 state champion basketball coach, Lisa Mandeville.
For me, Plainville girls basketball began in the winter of 1983 as a player and continued after I graduated and became the program's coach. Over that short period of time, I witnessed the rise of women's basketball. Thanks to Title IX, women received equality in sports, equal funding, equipment, and gym time, both in terms of time and quality. The birth of AAU allowed girls the opportunity to play and practice year-round. And presently, the sport is now respected worldwide. But it wasn't until 2000 that I learned the specifics of the origin of Plainville High School's women's basketball. Byron Trito approached me with an idea to unite the Angels with the players who would go on to win the state championship. So before a home game, several members of the Blue Angels, along with members of my girls' team, gathered together in the cafeteria at Plainville High School and shared memories of yesterday. For my players, it was an opportunity to learn about and appreciate the past. It has always been important to me to know exactly from where you came. For the Blue Angels, I hope it was the chance to see how they had shaped the future of girls basketball. And for me personally, it was the beginning of some beautiful friendships, friendships that I cherish to this day still. So without further ado, it is my absolute honor and pleasure to invite the Blue Angels up here to be formally recognized and appreciated for their deeds. Lovely ladies. Come on, get a nice picture with you guys.
Who's the second? No one's going to say a few words? Helen, are you the spokesperson?
No, I'm not.
Someone say a few words?
We really did play basketball.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You're all going to get a picture that'll be in this frame. Once we develop the picture of all of them, okay?
Are you going to hand it?
We're going to get it to you. It won't be tonight, but we're going to get it to you. Byron knows.
Just
where you-
announce it over the thing. They're going to get that.
The Blue Angels will be receiving a picture commemorating tonight's event inside a nice frame. Thank you very much, ladies, for your time and your introduction of basketball to Plainville High School. So next, our next Hall of Fame inductee will be James Graney. Jim, class of 1969, standout football, basketball, and baseball player. Tom Arcari will present Jim's induction. Tom?
Good evening and welcome. On a personal note, I've been following Plainville High School sports since 1957, so I am old. During that time, I've had the pleasure to see many great athletes. Some of them are seated here tonight, and I have to say that Jim was one of the best. He was a three-sport athlete, and he ranks in my top 10. I won't go into who's where or what, but he's definitely up there. I also have the honor because he was my brother-in-law. And I'd like to thank, from his family, I'd like to thank members of his era that came here to represent him. Jim was a 1969 graduate who was a varsity sport starter in 3 sports for all 3 years, sophomore, junior, and senior. I'll tell a slight story. His sports career started when he was 10 years old, and I was the equipment manager. At practices, this little kid would come in, he was 10 years old, he would come and sit next to me and watch the practices. And I couldn't understand why a 10-year-old kid would sit and watch. When the games started, he didn't have the price of admission. So he was hanging around the gate, and I said, Jimmy, come here. I gave him the ball bag, and we walked in, and he became the ball carrier. I figured he'd run around the field like everyone else. But no, he stood by the player's bench and watched the game. A little bit later on, and for all you teachers in the background that don't want to hear this, we used to sneak him on the JV bus and take him to the away games. So it was a little bit different. But anyway, as a sophomore, he played defensive back and left halfback in football. He was a guard on basketball and played center field, third base, and first base in baseball. Unfortunately for that era, numerical statistics are not available. During his junior year, he played the entire game of football, offense and defense. In basketball that year, he scored 68 points with 37 rebounds and 21 steals. In baseball, he was what they call the Triple Crown winner. He led the team in batting with 310, 2 home runs, and 9 RBIs. As a senior, he was captain of all 3 sports. Playing both offense and defense in football, he scored 32 of the team's 124 points. That was for a team that was 1-8-1. In basketball, he scored 227 points with 77 rebounds and 19 steals. In baseball, he caught the entire season and led the team in 7 categories. He batted .341, had 14 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, 24 hits, 6 doubles, a triple, and a .470 on-base percentage. Following the seasons, in the summer, he played 3 years of American Legion Baseball. And for those of you that remember Ken Iser, who used to have tournament teams, he played on one of the summer tournament teams. He also played 3 years of fast-pitch softball for his U.S. Army Military Police Unit. And I'd like to ask his widow, Nancy, to come up and receive the award.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all here tonight, all you Plainville faces. I guess I can't top what Tom just explained and all Jimmy did. I was in Wheeler School when he was playing all these games. But I know he lived and he loved sports, and I know he'd be honored by the induction into the Hall of Fame. And I thank you all. Thank you very much.
We gotta get a picture, and then we'll put it back over there.
Next inductee, Aaron Solis, class of 2001. Aaron is probably the best and the first female wrestler at Plainville High School. She had an unbelievable high school career and to follow. Here to introduce Aaron is Mark Wesley.
First, I'd like to congratulate all the inductees tonight. I have the pleasure to introduce the second wrestler to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Erin was an All-American named by USA Wrestling, but instead of me telling you her accomplishments, I want to introduce her coach, Sean Kelly. He coached at Plainville High School for 11 seasons. He has 2 conference team championships, a state runner-up. The individual achievements that he has had were 12 state finalists, 8 state champions, 2 state open champions, 3 New England place winners, and 1 New England finalist being Aaron. Sean.
Thanks, Mark. It's truly an honor to be here to induct Erin, have the chance to say a few words about her. Erin is unique and compared to any athlete that's probably been inducted into the Hall of Fame for the fact that she competed in a male-dominated sport. When Erin came out on the team, her older brother had wrestled, and I'm sure there was plenty of wrestling that happened in the living room that prepared her for the wrestling room. But Erin had an amazing heart, toughness. She was just a competitor that really set an example. We had a young team at the time when she was coming through, and by the time she was a senior, she was a captain. And what stands out for that is the respect that she earned from her male teammates. For a girl to wrestle and to gain that type of accolades in a male-dominated sport kind of spoke volumes about Erin as a person. She really shaped that young team to reach really high levels. They did some special things, but it all kind of started with that group with Erin having just the way she was in the practice room. She had the heart of a champion, and I couldn't be prouder to have the chance to speak for her tonight. Thank you.
So, without further ado, Miss Erin Solis.
I'm a little shorter, so I'll do this. Hello. I'm glad I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see all of you looking at me. So let me first just begin by extending my congratulations to all the other inductees. I truly am honored to be included in such a distinguished group. I want to also express my deepest gratitude and appreciation to the selection committee, and especially to whomever nominated me, which I still don't know who that is. So if you're here tonight, please let me know so I can personally thank you. So I really do feel honored to be thought of in this way. And one of the best moments about being honored was when my son Dylan found out. We were in my car getting ready to leave the baseball field, and he read the press release, and then he dashed out of the car and started telling all of our friends, and then proceeded to call anybody he could think of to tell them. It was very cute. So, seeing how proud he was kind of helped power me through having to do this tonight. So Dylan, thank you for being my biggest fan. Appreciate it. So there's several people I'd like to thank. I want to thank my family and my friends for being here to support me tonight. It really means a great deal to me. I also want to thank my brother Ray, who helped get me to my first women's wrestling tournament, and my mom and my dad, who took me up and down the East Coast and to Michigan to other tournaments. Without that happening, I would never have been noticed and received a scholarship for wrestling, so thank you. I also want to thank my mom, who never missed a single competition while I was a Plainville athlete. Thank you for always being there. I also want to thank the Batista and the Cavallero families for being so encouraging to me during my high school years. It's your belief in me that meant such a great deal that I really just can't express how much that meant to me, so thank you. So I'm going to get to my wrestling family in a minute. So don't worry, guys. I'm not going to talk about the time I beat you all in a push-up competition or about the time I used to yell at you to hustle or run faster. Jesse. So I wrestled at a time when women wrestling was not common or accepted by the majority. And it's still not there 100% today, but we've made a lot of progress. So tonight for me is about recognizing I had a small part to play in breaking those barriers. And also the blue lady, the blue angels, thank you as well, because of what you did, it made it easier for me to be a woman athlete, and I do appreciate that. So I hope I too have made this path smoother for future to come. But I also want to recognize my teammates for that. I was very fortunate because I came onto a team that for the majority was accepting. They gave me a chance to show that I belonged. I'm grateful to have been with such a progressive group of guys, and I'm also grateful for my brother David, who was 2 years senior than me, a phenomenal wrestler, and probably had something to do with people giving me a chance. So thank you, David and my wrestling fellas, for supporting me and taking part in changing the minds that a wrestler is a wrestler is a wrestler. And it's not about being a male or a female, but it's about what you show out there on the mat. Because wrestling shapes people. And I can still remember my coach, Sean Kelly. He would always say things like, it builds character, and wrestling prepares you for life. And I can remember in those moments feeling like that was maybe important, but I didn't really get it. But now I get it. It challenges you, and it challenged me, and it shaped me in ways no other experience in my formative years shaped me. Anyone that can make it through a practice pushing themselves beyond theirs and others' perceived limits, and then come back the next day to do it again, is a person you want on your team. It teaches you that you can't lose as long as you get back up again. And the real opponent in wrestling and in life is really yourself, and it's the limits you place on yourself and the level of belief you have in yourself. And to me, being successful wasn't about wins, although they were nice. It was about giving it everything I had, getting up when I was knocked down, and believing I could do it. It's that perseverance mindset that helps me today. And that's a message I hope to pass on to my son, my nieces, my nephew, Sebi, who's here tonight and also a wrestler. It's not about the win as much as it is about what you put into the journey. That you hold your head high with integrity, stand for something, and never stop trying. Because if you keep pushing through, especially during the hardest of times, you will succeed. So believe in yourself and don't buy into the limits you or others place on you. So thanks again to the committee for recognizing me, everyone that came here to support me tonight, and to my teammates and my coach. I will always remember our time together. It was fun and it was hard, and I will cherish those moments. Thank you.
Our next inductee was from the class of 1972, J Buckley. Jay was an outstanding football, basketball, and baseball player. Here to introduce Jay is Bill Pettit, way in the back of the room.
How much did everybody up here pay for the expensive seats up front? Like $25 in the back. Jay's brother's in the back table. Well, I'm here to introduce John J. Buckler. Buck's induction into the Hall of Fame is long overdue. I got in, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago. Buck should have got in long before me. Big oversight on the committee's part, so apologies on our woeful voting over the past decade. Jay was a four-sport guy: soccer, football, basketball, and baseball. Many people think, due to the different roles he played, that he's somewhere in the top 5 or 10 of athletes of all time in the history of the school. I, being a basketball guy, put him in the top 3 of guys that I know about and saw in terms of the big men: Earl Jackson, Mark Charapusco, and Buck in terms of big guys. And I guess depending on what kind of offense you want to build, you might pick one over the other depending on the team that you had. I loved it this is back in the day when freshmen didn't play varsity. And so actually, I played 1 year with Jay my sophomore year, but actually, my freshman year was a lot more fun because we got to go in the old gym. And like someone else before this said, the place used to be sold out for every home game, standing room only. The place just rocking. We had just moved into a new league. We were really a Class M school, and we played an L and double L schedule all year. And so when we beat people like Woodrow Wilson and people like Middletown and people like Southington, the place was going crazy. People didn't think we could compete in the league, and actually in the first year we were in it, we won the championship with Jay as the big guy. I talked to Matt. Matt knows obviously more about his brother than any of us in the room do, and he reminded me of something that in the 3 years before Jay joined the team, Plainville High School won 11 games. 11 games in 3 years. After Jay joined the team, Plainville High School won 48 games. So plus 37, wins above replacement in the olden years. And I saw a lot of those games first as a freshman in the stands and as a sophomore as part of the team. Jay had a great year. Junior, he averaged 19 rebounds a game, which not many people can talk about. And that was, Joe Dame was the coach then, and it was a run and gun offense long before run and gun got popularized 20 years ago. This was going back to the late 60s, early 70s, and very much a guard-oriented offense. So Bobby Glines, who's a great shooter, and Bruce McClellan, a great floor general, and the Tommy Gervais, and Vet Mason's here. Vet Mason played on those teams, Jeff Palmer, a few other guys. It was really a guard-oriented team, so Jay got, in my mind, for the oldsters in the crowd thinking about it, sort of the Bailey Howell of the team. He was supposed to play defense, block shots, get rebounds, and toss it out to the guards so they can scoot down the court and shoot. And in spite of that, he got the 19 rebounds. As a sophomore, averaged 10 points a game. As a junior, 16. As a senior, 18. Fairfield Prep was a tough team, a private school that drew from many schools. And Jay rose to the top there with, probably get it reversed, either 19 points and 21 rebounds or 21 points and 19 rebounds, a big double-double. We got knocked out by Bloomfield that year. So it was really a pleasure to play with Jay. He took up a lot of space in the middle, played a lot bigger than his 6'4", 6'5" size, really played like a guy who was 6'7", 6'7", 8", had a pretty soft touch around the hoop, and really changed the course of Plainville basketball, which had been on a downward swirl. And not to forget, because there's a lot of football guys out there, he was really a stellar part of the 71 team, helped cement both on offense and defense to win against Southington that year, was a big part of that as well. So without further ado, Jay?
Good evening. I had a long, eloquent speech planned for tonight, but my brother wouldn't write it for me. I want to thank all the people that I played with, the committee for selecting me, and mostly the people that lobbied on my behalf. Jeff Palmer, my brother, Matt, Dave Hansen. They all put in a good word for me, and I really appreciate that. We had a good time back then, no doubt about it. The bus was a trip every time. Yeah, always a trip, that's true. And probably the best time of my life. I went on to play college and that's because my high school career, and I had a ball. And I don't know what else to say, but thanks for everyone, and thanks for showing up, and thanks for having me up here. Thanks, and Matt, next time, write me a speech. I get to take this one home? Oh, so you can take that to your table and give it back to Mike and him. Yeah. All right. Thank you. We need both.
Back in the 50s and the 60s, track was a sport that Plainville High School was very, very good at. The 1958 track team won the state title. There were always a sense of pride to the town of Plainville. The coaching was excellent, and the athletes were second to none. To introduce tonight's recipient of the 1958 track team is Michael Beck, Iser.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the 1958 track team. But before I do that, I'll let you know a couple of things about this track team. This track team played in probably the worst conditions ever. They didn't have no synthetic thing, whatever they call it now. They had cinders, and they used to be at the old high school. And to tell you, I have a little story about that. Paul Mascry let me tell you this story. Paul Mascry had a 1951 Chevy 6-cylinder Power Glide. And all the guys on the team would make fun of him because they said that they could beat that car in a 100-yard dash. Well, Johnny Gasick went over and said, I'll race you. So what they did is Paul went and got his 51 Chevy, brought it onto the field, which was a cinder 100-yard dash, and he raced Gasick and got beat. Now, this isn't the end of the story. Paul Mascry goes out about 6 months later. He buys a 1958 Ford 390, 4-speed, dual exhaust, 4-barrel. I guess he wanted to race Ronnie Pavano next. I don't know. All right, but this is my pleasure because most of these guys I know, believe it or not, are not that much older than me. I look a lot younger, but that's must be my genes. But these guys here were like brothers to all of us, and it started really the true athletics of their time. Okay, during the season, several school records were established by this team. Ronnie Pavano placed the record setters and completed 4 years of running, holding the school's 100-yard dash mark, the 220 mark, and as a member of the record-setting 880 team, Pavano also established records in the 60-yard dash at the Hartford International Meet and the Yukon State Meet, and the 100-yard dash for the Central Valley League at CCSU. Other records include John Gasick in the broad jump, Pavano, Gasick, Gil Gauthier, and Tommy Graney in the 880 relay, John Gasick in the 220-yard run, and Roger Roy in the pole vault. Now, Ronnie, well, I know Ronnie wouldn't bring this up, but Ronnie Pavano still holds the 100-yard dash because there is no more 100-yard dash running. It's the meter. So Ronnie retired that record, and I know he's proud of it. And now, without further ado, before I finish, they also won the Class M title. Then they went on and won the Open, which they beat Hartford, and Hartford was a powerhouse back then. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the 1958 track team. Okay, Bob Dalkey, John Cavalier, John Gasick, Tom Graney, Paul Mascry, Ron Pavano, Roger Roy, Steve Vargo, and Felix Varchone. And John Gasick's sister was in the Blue Angels, just to let you know. So John, we know where you get your athleticism from, your sister. Come on up, guys. What are you doing? Sitting there? Come on, you ain't that old? Come on. Come on up here. And I'm going to ask Ronnie, who was the captain of this team, to say very few words. Very few.
I'm ready for bed.
Boy, what a motley looking crew this is tonight. Huh? We can still do a lot of damage, you know. We sleep a lot. On behalf of the team for 1958, I thank you. I thank all the other inductees for being here. In 1955, Coach Wood decided that he was going to start the track in Plainville again. We ran in back of the old junior high school. We had 4 lanes, cinders. The first track meet in 1955, in back of that, there was 6 of us on the team. We set 4 records. I was fortunate enough to go to the New Englands, but we had no coaches that could go. Ivan Wood was up for principalship, so to go to the New Englands, they sent me to New Britain. I had to go with Irving Black. Back in those days, the first uniforms we had, a lot of the parents went out and bought us the T-shirts, the undershirts. It went to the home ec department. Plainville was too big to put on there, so all we had was PLV. In 1956 is when the dynasty began to grow. And I will say, if you look back at track, not only in Plainville, but any other team in the state of Connecticut, with the exception of Hartford Public and New Britain. And in 1958, we beat them both. The type of equipment that we had, I saved. This was the original baton for the team of 1955. We had an old man as a janitor, Mr. Casey. We had no batons. He took broom handles. And this is what we ran with. This baton we ran in the state championships down in Yale with Mr. Graney, Mr. Gasick, God bless him, Gil Gothard, and myself. Those are the times. So this stick is damn near as old as I am. But seriously, I don't believe you're going to look back in records anywhere in the state of Connecticut where a high school track team, again I said dynasty, and I mean that with a capital D. We won the state indoor and the state outdoor. There was only one other team that came close, was New Britain against Hartford Public in their division. New Britain was going for the same titles that we had. Hartford Public with Lindy Ramagino, his teams beat New Britain. On record, we are the only high school state champions, both indoors and out, on records as of today. I have to tell you a quick story, and then I'm done. We had a final meet against Glastonbury High School, which back in those days, we were a Class M school, but we were running powerhouses because Coach Early, when he came on board, turned this whole program around. And I mean, turned it around. When we used to work out for Woody, we'd work out there in gym class and tell him we worked out after, and Johnny and I and Steve Vargo went fishing or hunting. Early wouldn't let us get away with that. We had to work. In Glastonbury, it was our last meet. We were undefeated, and we needed some extra points. Back then in those days, when you had a pole vaulter that was doing over 9 feet pretty consecutive, you had a hell of a pole vaulter. And I might say in the beginning of the years, we borrowed the pole vault for Roger. We decided that day we needed some extra points, so Coach Early said, John Gasick, get the pole. Roger was a state champion, and Johnny tied him in the pole vault that night. And he had never pole vaulted before. As a result, there's our guys. Thank you very much.
Just face me, right over here, right over here. Guys. There you go, come on up, there you go. Right here, guys. There you go, guys, right here. Hold on. Okay, hold on, one more time and you're all set. You're taller than everybody. There you go, right there. Okay, you guys are good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations. So the next three inductees are baseball players, and I thought it appropriate to tell this little story. So these two baseball coaches, we'll call them Ron and Bob, were sitting up at Norton Park, and they were feeding the pigeons. And they were talking about baseball, looking back and forth at each other. And Ron says to Bob, "Do you think there's baseball in heaven?" Bob says, "I don't know." Bob thinks about it for a minute. He says, "Let's make a deal." He says, "Whichever one of us gets there first, come back and tell the other one if there's baseball in heaven." So they agree. So they made plans 3 weeks later to meet at Norton Park again to just discuss the baseball playoffs. Ron's at Norton Park 3 weeks later, no Bob. He waits a few minutes, no Bob. All of a sudden he hears this whispering and the rumbling in the trees. "Coach, it's me." Now, Ron knew that Bob had passed away, but he didn't think he'd be showing up at Norton Park. Bob says, "I've got the answer to the question." And Ron says, "What question are you talking about?" He says, "Is there baseball in heaven?" And Ron says, "Well, what's the answer?" Bob says, "Well, I got good news and bad news." Well, Ron says, "I don't want to hear the bad news right now. Tell me the good news." "The good news is there's baseball in heaven." Ron says, "Well, what's the bad news?" "You're pitching tomorrow night." So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce three of Bob Freeman's baseball players. He will introduce them, actually. John Andros, the class of 1995. Scott Redmond, also in the class of 1995. And Nick Masalero, the class of 1999. Coach Bob?
Thank you, Coach Ziogas. Good evening, everyone. Blue Angels, 58 guys, proud of you. Congratulations to all the inductees this evening. And let's have a nice round of applause, please, this evening for our Master of Ceremonies, Greg Ziogas, please. Nice round of applause. You know, Greg's got a lot of initials by his name. VP, P, AD, and now MC. Thank goodness, Doc, he doesn't have MD. Imagine him in a white coat. Talk about white coat syndrome. That'd be it. But last New Year's Day, I attended 12 o'clock Mass at St. Gregory's Church down the road, and I'm kneeling there, and here comes Johnny Andros with all these girls. 5 girls. And they're right there, and they sat right in front of me. And I thought to myself, Lord, it takes a special man to raise and provide for all these girls. But that's exactly what Johnny Andros is, a special man. And you girls are lucky, believe me. He was loved and respected by everyone he played with and played for. He was a great teammate and a great competitor. He played on 4 state championship teams. Johnny Andrews could hit. He had a classic left-handed swing, perfect balance, a great stroke, and he used the whole field. He was a red-headed rascal with a bat. In the 1994 state championship game against Holy Cross, we were in trouble. Down 4-1 at Palmer Field, Johnny Andros comes up and hits a home run over the right field fence. A line drive, no hump to it, a line drive out of the place. First home run he ever hit. Good timing. It turned the momentum of that game around, and we had some life, and Plainville wins. In the tournament that year, he batted .500 and drove in 8 runs. In high school baseball, if you get 20 hits in a season, that's a pretty good season because you play 20 games. In 1995, Johnny Andros was a laser show. In over 30 years of coaching, ladies and gentlemen, I've never seen anything like it. No one could get him out. At one point, he had 30 hits in 41 at-bats. 30 hits in 41 at-bats. And there were no cheapies. You guys back there saw it. You saw it. So the newspapers get a hold of this thing. 30 hits in 41 at-bats. And the Hartford Courant does an article on Johnny Andros. And they put his picture in the paper. And that afternoon, we go into Berlin to play Berlin. And they didn't like us. We didn't like them. And they wore red, borderline communists. So we get to the dugout at Percival Field, and there's a picture. There's a picture of John Andros hanging in the dugout, taped to the dugout. And they got a big circle around his face with a line going through it. And there was a bit of profanity under it. They swore, and we didn't. Yeah. So we left the picture up, and the kids went out to stretch, and I said to Lou Mandeville, my assistant coach, I said, Lou, get ready because they're going to drill this kid tonight. We're going to have a war on our hands. And it's happened before over there, right, Scoop? So Johnny Andros wasn't intimidated, ladies and gentlemen. In the first at-bat, bang, single up the middle. Second at-bat, he strikes out on a bad call. And I politely and tactfully told the umpire, sir, I think you made a mistake. John Andros is 30 for 41. He doesn't strike out. No profanity whatsoever. In the third at-bat, double. Fourth at-bat, double again. 3 for 4 under that pressure. One of the greatest displays of courage I've ever seen. Fearless and courageous. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Johnny Andros into the Plainville Sports Hall of Fame.
I don't know about borderline communists. I think they're full-blown communists if they're swearing like that, Coach. I don't know what's more amazing is being inducted and having this honor, or that my daughter just asked me if Dr. William Pettit played on the same team as I do. I'm taking it as a compliment, Dr. Pettit. I'm taking it as a compliment. Thank you to the Plainville Sports Hall of Fame. To the friends, my family, guests. This is such an amazing award. I also like to thank Frank Dunzik and Brian Edge for your support. You championed for me. I owe you a big debt of gratitude for helping me get here. 2 days ago, I realized there might be a certain game on right now that some of you might be checking your cell phones and everything. But I will warn you that I am a teacher, and I do have 4 daughters, and I'm used to talking to people and them not actually paying attention to me. They're usually on their phones as a teacher and as my 4 daughters. So this is nothing I haven't seen before. As Coach mentioned, I was lucky enough to be a part of some very special Plainville moments in Plainville sports history, and that I am the father of 4 daughters. My life has transitioned slightly. I'm the guy who kills spiders. I fix toilets. I trip over things. I get hurt often. I accidentally flew the toy helicopter into a fire pit. Sorry, Audrey. That was basically just today. I am the ninth most important person in my family, behind the pets. Aaron Soli, I'm so jealous that your son was so proud of you, because I've got a little bit of a different story. And to put it into simplest terms, I'm basically a custodian at a small sorority. My wife is a live-in maid, and we survive by sticking together. But I try to explain to the more important members of the family, if you will, that I was nominated. And two theories arose at Kappa Kappa Andros here. There was one that I was picked by random selection. My daughter actually does this hat thing where she actually looks like... and the other is that because I'm so old, and apparently so because Dr. Pett and I played together, that all the good players have been chosen and now I could be honored. That's my story, Aaron. That's my story. It would have been so easy to say yes, and that you figured it out, but I told them instead that tonight is actually a very special night for me because many of you here are the reason why I am here. And I told them that if they listened tonight, they would hear the reason why I am here and I can stand before you. The blame begins with God. I've learned that I am able to accomplish anything with God's grace, and trust me, the prayers have increased since the teenage years of my daughters. The blame is also with Grandma, my mom, St. Francine, my father, my hero, Fran. They taught me patience and kindness. I was a hot-tempered, red-headed son of a gun. I hated to lose more than anything. I didn't always treat my brother the best either. Sorry, Jimmy. But they taught me service, patience, kindness, and the grace to look over the things that didn't make me perfect. And that would be a theme in my life. You could blame my brother Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy, who was always there to play, compete, be a teammate, a friend. He, along with my awesome Spring Street neighbors, Earl Snyder's way back there somewhere, my Spring Street friend, they gave me a childhood that money could not buy here in Plainville. I mean, you cannot beat the community and the neighborhood that we had. We were supported, encouraged, and protected day in and day out, at least until the streetlights came on. And just to say, when you live next to someone like an Earl Snyder, or even the people in my neighborhood, Nick Massolero, hockey buddy there, it is amazing the competition that you get. You play day in and day out. And as a lesson, my daughters, we did it all without cell phones either. Go figure. I'm here because of teachers in Plainville, and I got a teaching group back there. Thank you very much for coming out. But teachers like Bob Stewart, his amazing humor. Coach Jones, Mr. Ron Jones, you spent time in study halls to talk to us about baseball, life, the history of what it meant to be a Plainville athlete. Steve Compson in the back, who helped me through a paper. Mrs. DeThomas, who had the audacity to make me stay after school to get my chemistry help, and then reminded me that I am a player at Plainville Schools. I'm an athlete because I am a student. I also like to say thank you to Greg Ziogas. There's many times in my life my dad taught me lessons that didn't stick. And with Greg, for some reason, it just made sense. He had these pearls of wisdom, he had these jokes, he had encouragement. He was there on the field all the time with us. Just an amazing man and amazing experience, because I don't know how he would have survived Florida sometimes without you. Lou, I can stand here today because you poured your heart and soul out for us and did everything you could to make us the best players and the best people. I can speak for the team when I tell you for 4 years we try not to disappoint you. And thank you very much for your kindness to us. One of the best things that ever happened to me was accepting the state All-State Award when you were accepting your Assistant Coach of the Year award. That was just awesome for me. That was one of my favorite experiences. Coach Freem, the two greatest things this guy does is he motivates and he makes things fun, if you hadn't noticed from the speech with the fun piece. Be it practice, lectures, catting it up, talks under the old oak tree. You were a great motivator and got the best from the players. You coined for me the phrase "O for Coco" in Florida when I was in a slump, because I was in a slump that year in the beginning. And that "O for Coco" helped me just to laugh it through, and I got through much more than that season. I'm here because of the support of the team parents, and there's some here, some Scott Redmond's parents I saw Mr. Martin. The team parents were so supportive that they welcomed us at every game. They were there, and it made a difference. In one particular story, we played a prank on Coach Freemuth, and we told him he was Coach of the Year. And we were in Florida, and we did this whole thing. I think, Greg, you were kind of made us believe at one time. So supportive were these parents that when Coach Freem came back, they had gifts for him. They had signs for him, like, welcome back, Coach of the Year.
And I kept them.
And you probably kept them, yeah. I think part of that was support, and part of it might have been that we forgot to actually tell them it was a prank. So, but they were the best. Finally, my teammates. I am the beneficiary of their amazing talents. In 4 years, I never lost my sense of gratitude for having just made the team. As 9 starting seniors, we fittingly ended our PHS careers on the baseball field. We graduated the day before, so the last thing we did as Plainville High School students was actually being Plainville High School athletes. At the end of that game, which we won the state championship in 1995. If you had looked at the locker room, you would have saw players just crying and upset, hugging coaches, needing to be consoled because we were so sad that it had ended, that it was over. Those 4 years were amazing, and those teammates were amazing as well. I could never fully remove myself from those teammates, though, and this is just to speak to the power of the baseball program we have. For the next 4 years when I played at Marist College, well, the first game I played at Marist College was against University of Hartford, and the 3, 4, 5 guys were Brian Edge, Earl Snyder, and Brian Biskubiak. So I had 4 Division I athletes, former high school, Plainville High School baseball players. Just amazing. I don't know if, that doesn't happen very often. And for the next 4 years, the joke at my college team was, well, who does John know at this game? Because there's got to be somebody from Plainville there. Mr. Rogers spoke at my college graduation. He reiterated a quote that has always struck a chord with me. He said, love is at the root of everything. All learning, all relationships, love or lack of love. And I have benefited from the love of this Plainville community. It's important to note that I can see that love, the bleeding of blue in the talents of our current teachers, our staff, our coaches, our administrators, and particularly our athletic director, Chris Farrell, and of course, Coach Lou Mandeville. Our program is great because we have great people in the program. They show what they know and they teach what they love. I know our student athletes are in good hands because of that. So Tori, Emma, and Bridget, I am truly here by these people that have surrounded us right now, that are surrounding you. They have given me basically everything that I needed to start a life, be it my parents, the coaches, friends, family, neighbors, the support from parents. And I can stand here before you because of that. And I thank all of you for this great award. Thank you.
Okay, player number 2. Scott Redmond. Scott Redmond was at his best when the stakes were high, when the moment was big. He did his talking with his bat and his arm. I called him a silent assassin. In 4 years in the baseball program, he probably said 20 things, and for the sake of time, he'll probably say 20 things tonight. But Scott Redmond got us out of a lot of trouble over the years. In 1993, his home run at Muzzy Field is a memorable moment. I went over the scoreboard in left field, a bomb, very difficult thing to do because it's hard to hit a home run in Muzzy Field, in any part of the field, but left field especially. We were down 2-0 and we were in trouble. And of course, Scott came to the rescue. His home run gave us life, and it sparked a comeback victory that put us into the state finals. In probably what was one of the greatest games that I've ever been involved with as a high school coach or a baseball coach. The game took 4 hours. There was an hour and 23-minute rain delay, and just an amazing high school baseball game. We were fortunate to win. Just a sideline, Brian Edge, of course, wants everyone to remember that he was intentionally walked so that the opposing team could face a former major leaguer, Earl Snyder. In the 1994 state championship game against Holy Cross, we were in trouble again, down 5-2 in the fourth inning, and Scott Redmond comes to the rescue. He strikes out the next three hitters using one pitch, a fastball. Lou was calling the pitches, and he kept putting down the fastball sign. And Scott Redmond kept throwing it. And he kept throwing it harder and faster. And it seemed as the game went on, it was gaining life, faster and faster. So we get to the 10th inning with a tie score, and Earl Snyder leads off with a single. This is after Scott strikes out the last three guys. And now Earl wasn't exactly a cheat on the base paths, but he did win the race of the century that year in practice. Each year we had a race of the century, and the race of the century was reserved for guys that we used to time with a sundial rather than a stopwatch. And of course that year, Scotty Redmond and Scotty Martin were in that race of the century too, and Earl won. And they just so happened, Scott Redmond and Scott Martin were the next two guys in the batting order. So, we had a lot of speed on the base paths and on deck. So Redmond hit a home run the year before, and everybody's thinking, hit away. He'll hit another one over the wall, and we'll win. And I had a great idea. I said, he's going to bunt. So we had no speed on the bases and no speed at the plate and no speed on deck, but I'm going to bunt. So I give Lou the bunt sign, and he looks at me and goes, and I go, yeah, bunt. So Scott bunts the most beautiful bunt that I've ever seen. Right down the third baseline, a perfect, unselfish sacrifice bunt. And Earl Snyder, like a cheetah, slides safely into second base. We got a runner in scoring position. And Scott Martin hits a double to score Earl. And Earl slides into home plate on a double, like a cheetah. So I love that story about Scott Redmond's bunt. And everybody remembers the home run, but I remember the bunt. And we scored 3 more runs, and we win the game in the 10th inning against Holy Cross to win a state championship. Now, Scott Redmond's pitching line in that 1994 title game in relief was a 7 innings pitch in relief. 7 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, throwing 1 pitch, a fastball. Incredible performance. 1995 state finals against Maloney, we had everybody ready to pitch, but we decided to go with Scott because he'd been there before. He was solid that game, never in trouble. And in 2 state title games, 1994 and 1995, he pitched 14 innings and had 14 strikeouts and had 0 walks. He got us out of a lot of trouble. So please welcome Scott Redmond to the Plainville Sports Hall of Fame.
I'd like to thank the committee for nominating me and inducting me into the Hall of Fame. One person in particular, John Andros, 2 little kids, OLM kindergarten. Look at us tonight. Congratulations to the ladies basketball team. Some of you look like you can still play. Meet you on the courts after. Aaron Solis, I used to be really good friends with your brother, and I used to hang out at your house all the time. And I remember you and your other little brother beating the crap out of each other all the time. I'd like to thank my family for showing up for me, my in-laws, my mom and dad, my wife, my daughter, my buddy Pat, my buddy Jimmy. My grandmother always said, it's not polite to talk about yourself, so I'm going to talk about other people. So a good football story. It was a good, we were playing Middletown, and we were getting the crap kicked out of us. Coach Lasky calls a timeout, comes out to the field, and our running back, Jeff Sangel, said, "Coach, can we try something that works?" We had 4 plays that year until RJ took over and the playbook opened up. It's either hand it off left to Jeff or hand it off right to Jeff. So he comes up with the play of, let's hand it off to Jeff up the middle, which went for a 3-yard loss, and we went to halftime. Another story, baseball story, is the time Earl hit, the ball hasn't landed yet. I was on deck, I came up after him, and the catcher and the umpire is like, good luck living up to that. So I tried to hit the ball as far as I could, and I hit a little dribbler back up to the pitcher, and I got out. So Coach Freed told me to keep this short and sweet. Everyone wants to go home, so thank you for this.
Bar still open? This past week, I had a great conversation about Nicky Masalero, our next inductee, with my good friend, Coach Charlie Hickey at Central Connecticut State University. Nick Masalero went to Central Connecticut State University on a full athletic scholarship to play baseball. And before I go any further, Nick, I want to congratulate your mom and dad, Bob and Sue Masalero, on the fact that they didn't have to pay a dime for you to go to college. You know, that's great. Because Coach Hickey went through his old files and he emailed me one of your old progress reports that I'm going to share with everybody tonight. This is dated February 26, 2001. It says Student Athlete Progress Report, Sport Baseball, Professor Jonah Cohen, Coordinator, Academic Center for Student Athletics, or Student Athletes at the E. Burritt Library in Central Connecticut State University. Name of the athlete, Nick Masalero. Class Communications 140, Section 1. Class attendance, 5 absences, 1 of which was excused, 3 times late to class, grade to date, D. Professor suggestions, comments. C on first speech, F on midterm. Nick needs to take college more seriously. He's going to have his grade lowered if he keeps missing classes. Nick's immature. You do not sleep through a midterm exam and then blame your roommate for not setting the alarm. Not in my class. Thank God, Bob and Sue, that you didn't have to pay a dime for Nick's education. Nicky Masalero was a baseball rat. You couldn't get him off the field. He was the first one to practice, last one to leave. Quiet, soft-spoken, polite. That changed when the scoreboard was lit. He was a great competitor. He loved to play baseball, and he played the sport exceptionally well. Oh boy. In 1997, he started as a sophomore and as shortstop. And that's a very difficult position because other than the pitcher and catcher, nobody handles the ball more than a shortstop. And in the second inning of the second game of that season, he gets hit by a pitch and breaks his hand. And Nick finished the game with a broken hand. The next day, he went to see a doctor, and the doctor wanted to put 2 screws in the hand to stabilize it. So Nick decided, declined that he wasn't going to have the screws put in, and he was determined to let it heal on its own, naturally, with rest. So he missed several games, but he came back before he should have and put a pad in his glove, his left hand. You know, when a baseball hits your hand, it hurts sometimes. So he played the rest of the season with this protective padding in his glove. and he had an outstanding sophomore season. But in 1999, Nick tore it up, his senior year. Nick tore it up offensively, defensively, and on the mound. He was probably the best player in the state, I thought. He had 3 pitches that he could throw for strikes at any time in the count: fastball, curveball, changeup. He could screw guys up with, like a Christmas turkey with those pitches. And of course, Jesse Carlson, the great Berlin pitcher, left-handed pitcher, who went on to play for UConn and Toronto Blue Jays in the big leagues. He lost 1 game in high school, and Nick Massolero beat him at Norton Stadium. Yeah. And in the state tournament that year, Nick was a horse. And when you get a horse, you got to ride it. In the first game, he pitched in relief. In the quarterfinals against Tolland, he pitched again 7 innings, 16 strikeouts. Semifinals, we're leading 3-2. Nick comes in relief, closes out the game. We go on to the state championship game. And I was getting a little concerned about his workload. You know, he's pitched a lot of pitches. His innings are adding up. They want to hurt the kid. So I'd ask Nick, how you doing? He says, I feel great, Coach. I'm ready to go. Let's go. He's all amped up. You know, he's all fired up. I can go. So he says, I got to talk to your dad, Nick, and see where we're at with this thing, you know. So I give his dad, Bob, a call, and I said, Bob, what do you think? How do you feel about it? Well, he says, it's not my arm. He says, it's your call. You're the coach. So I says, well, if you got a horse, you got to ride it. And we did. And in the 1999 state finals against Nonawag, Nick Massolero threw a no-hitter. A no-hitter. No. I don't know how many no-hitters there are in the state finals in the state of Connecticut, but there aren't too many. Probably less than a handful. Fastball for a strike, curveball for a strike, changeup for a strike, any time in the count. Remarkable performance in a big moment. And probably the greatest pitching performance that I've seen in a big moment like that. 7 innings pitched, no hits, and Plainville wins again. So totals for the 1999 state tournament, 15 2/3 innings pitched, 29 strikeouts, 0 runs allowed. Incredible. So Coach Charlie Hickey, in his email to me this week, he said this about Nick that I want to share with you. He was a pleasure to coach. He was a 4-year starter at Central Connecticut State University from 1999 to 2003. He was a key member of 2 Northeast Conference championships, played in the NCAA regionals, University of Texas and Arizona State University. He statistically ranks in the top 10 all-time in at-bats, doubles, hits, and runs scored. Received a 2003 Fred Gladstone Award given to the top male athlete at Central Connecticut State University. And to quote Coach Hickey, Nick was the first player I met when I started coaching at CCSU. He was instrumental in developing our winning tradition, remembered for his hard work and passion to play the game of baseball, and for his academic prowess. Nick Massolero, welcome to the Hall of Fame.
I didn't know my grades were that bad. I did graduate college, and now I work for the state, so thank you for my salary, guys. I appreciate paying your taxes. So, pulling out my speech, my daughter wrote my speech for me, so this is what I'm gonna go off of today. I do want to thank the Plainville Hall of Fame Committee for this induction. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the people who are here with me. My wife, my beautiful wife, and my 4-year-old daughter. My 8-month-old son is with family in Middletown. It would be a little much with all the kids. So I don't know if my daughter really knows what's going on, but I'll try to explain it to her at a later date. Spending time talking to my mother and father about what I would say and what I would talk about, they had many, many ideas of what I should say, who I should thank. Obviously, that man over there has been very influential. There's a big table back there, Brian Edge, Brian Biskupiak, Earl Snyder. who gave up time when they were in high school. Most high school kids don't want to hang out with an 8 or 9-year-old, but they gave up the time to take me to old Plainville baseball field and learn how to hit the ball the other way and take ground balls and just play the game the right way. They taught me, as well as all my coaches taught me, how to be a Blue Devil, how to actually the will to win and to such a small town, showing Southington and the Berlins and all these other towns that we can compete. But mostly I like to think about all the opportunities I've had. I've had a great coach in high school. I had Timmy Cooperman, John Blackmore Sr., my Little League coaches. Charlie Hickey, amazing coach. I remember Brian Edge coached there for a year, and he said, when I was getting out of high school, I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't know if I wanted to leave the state and play in another town, get away from the hometown thing. But then, George Redmond, Bristol guy, recruited me at Central Connecticut and said to me, Nicky, he had a big raspy voice, Nicky, you're going to come over here and you're going to play for the Blue Devils. You're going to be a Blue Devil your whole life. Blue Devil in Plainville, Blue Devil at Central. And I said, that sounded good to me. I signed my letter of intent, and I said to him, I said, Coach Redmond, I said, are you going to leave? You're getting older. He's like, oh, Nicky, I'm never going to leave this place. All right. 2 weeks later, he calls me, Nicky, I'm retiring. Sorry. I said, great. I said, so the guy who recruited me, I didn't know if I was going to play. I didn't know anything. I just made this big life decision and found out from Brian Edge that I got a coach, Charlie Hickey, from Providence College. The Title IX, they got rid of their baseball team, and he came over to Central. I remember going to campus one day just to meet him. I was like, I got to meet this guy. I just left high school baseball with one of, the greatest coaches I've ever played for, but he also was a friend, and he was also supportive. And I was like, I hope, this guy, this college coach is going to be the same way. I walked into his office, introduced myself, knew everything about me, talked to me, seemed like the greatest guy. I went home, told my parents, like, this is going to be great. 4 years, Central. This Coach Hickey guy's awesome, right? First day of practice, we ran about 30 miles, and we never stopped running for 4 years, but it was a good time. So overall, the opportunities I've been given just with the coaches and the people that have meant so much to me in the town, my sister's friends, the coaches and everything else. But the biggest opportunity that God gave me was I was born to a family with 2 loving parents, a loving sister. My mother never missed a game, not once. She switched her schedules to come see me. She never missed a game. I remember always going out for teams, and I would always be like, I'm not good enough. I'd come home, and I'd be like, I'm not going to play. There's this guy. He's better than me. And my mother would always be like, Nick, just believe in yourself. You're going to play. You're gonna play. And now having kids, I can see how annoying that was, because I did it every single year until I was, even in my senior year of high school, I did it. But she always supported me, always thought I was the best, and it meant so much to me. So, Mom, I thank you for that, and I love you. But my father, me being a father now to a beautiful little girl and an 8-month-old son, the time was the most important thing that he put in. My dad drove trucks for 37 years, worked to the bone. He got up 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, whenever he needed to be home for my baseball games or whatever I needed to do. I don't know how he did it. I needed a new baseball glove every Christmas, every baseball season, brand new gold glove. And anybody who played baseball, gold gloves are expensive. But I had one. I needed a bat, I needed cleats, did it. I came home from school, let's have a catch. Dad, right outside having a catch with me. Take me to Trumbull Park, take me to the fields. He was there, he put the time in. And he gave me, yeah. But thanks, Dad, and Mom too. So for everybody in this room, I appreciate all the support from this town. It's a great town. I'm glad I grew up here, and hope you guys have a good rest of the night. Thank you.
Got it?
So the last person on our induction list tonight probably has the biggest crowd here to represent him, the Amera family. Larry Amera, class of 1964. I think 3 words really describe Larry: athlete, scholar, and swell guy too. Larry's athletic prowess is well chronicled. He will be presented tonight by his brother-in-law, Tom Arcari.
Can I sit down and get up again? The applause was just, we all have to have a little ham in us. It's an honor. I've had the honor tonight to present for 2 brother-in-laws. And unfortunately, neither of them could be in attendance. One because he passed away and one because of some medical problems. And he is on the mend, so I want any of you that have been interested or have been following it, he is doing well and is on his road to recovery. Larry graduated Plainville High School in 1964 as a 2-sport athlete, football and track, both indoor and outdoor, while earning the role of captain of the football team. Larry was a versatile football player and was feared by other schools because of his strength and quickness. During the 3 decades encompassing what would be considered his peer group era of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Larry recorded some of the finest numbers as a running back. Larry was elected captain of the team in his senior year, which shows the amount of respect he garnered from his teammates and coaches during his football career. And on behalf of the family, I'd like to thank many of those people that are here tonight that were friends of Larry that came out to see his induction. And the Plainville statistics, which I have been doing as a thing for many years, he's ranked 15th for people with over 1,000 yards in career rushing. On kickoff returns, he averaged almost 18 yards a return. He had a modest 11-yard in pass receptions, but that was not his strength. His strength was in grabbing the ball and heading around the corner. He is 17th on the list of all-purpose yards. That's a combination of rushing yards, receiving yards, kickoff and punt returns. And back when you spread the ball around a little bit more, he was the first player in the history of Plainville High School to carry the ball 200 times or more. It was actually 278 times in his career. That record lasted for 34 years until it was broken in the 1990s. Larry also excelled as a member of the indoor and outdoor track and field teams as one of the fastest sprinters during his era. Because of his speed, he ran the first leg of the 880, and in 1963, his team set a school and meet record with a winning time of 1 minute 34.04 seconds. I hope I read that right. In '63, he tied the 60-yard dash record at the Connecticut State Open meet held at Yale with a time of 6.5 seconds. He ran the 100 in 10.3, the 220 in 22.5 seconds, and the 440 in 54 seconds. All very respectable, good numbers for that era. He was a member of the 1964 Class B state champions in track when the tournament was held at Yale University. Following high school and graduating at Central, he spent 35 years as an educator, a guidance counselor, and a principal in the Plymouth school system. He coached several high school and youth groups, including track and field and cross country and Little League. He was active in many civic organizations, and including a stint as chairman of the Board of Education in Bristol. And tonight, to take the honor and receive the plaque for him is his daughter, Allie. obviously, there's a little bit of goodness here because she's my niece. That's her claim to fame.
Thank you. I'm honored to receive this award from my father. I promised the grandkids I wouldn't cry. Sorry. We're just so happy my dad is alive and well, and that he is still alive and with us. So thank you, God. All right, I'll be good now. Okay. So he did want to first thank the committee and for everyone who helped gather the data and statistics for him. So Tommy Barber, Donnie, his cousin, and Tommy. So thank you to the committee for nominating him. He was very honored to receive this award and has been talking about it for months. So very happy about that. He wanted to thank his parents for unconditional love, support, instilling morals and values. And I'll ad-lib here that he had more than just Joe and Rose. He had Antoinette and Emilio right in the house, Sal and Rose, who were at Newton Ave, and Evelyn and Sean, who also were his parents. And a special thanks to Evie because she kept him in school so he actually could play football and not fail, because he did fail his freshman year in a couple subjects, so his other mother. And then he wanted to thank his children, so myself, Pete and Dave, and his 9 grandkids. And of course, his teammates and classmates, and also his wife, Lori. He wanted to mention they're coming up on 49 years of marriage. So, and she was a cheerleader herself, so, and probably his biggest cheerleader then and now and always. He just wanted to talk a little bit about his pathway to sports. He always talks about the Sandlot, Newton Ave, where he grew up, and all the games and football that they played right in the lot next to his house. And of course, they were always trying to get to the bigs in high school. He had some local heroes, John Gasick, he wanted to mention, and Steve Vargo. Of course, professional players, Jim Brown was his favorite running back, and his father, who played in a semi-pro football league, Middletown Blackhawks. So he expected to be a player and was very grateful and felt fortunate that he became the player he was. But the most important thing he wanted to mention tonight was what sports does for anyone involved. And he wanted to say that he believes, not just for himself, but anyone who's involved in sports, transferable skills. So hard work, a quote he loved was, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard." And he definitely instilled that in us as kids. He is preaching to his grandkids about that. And I'm sure all the students he taught and was a part of as an educator. Camaraderie, he felt football was one of the most unique sports in that you have to be such a team together. You can't do anything without the other teammates. Everybody on the team has a job and you got to do it together. So he loved that and still talks about it. And a good outlook. He felt that you have to have a positive outlook on any sport you're involved in and also life. And one of his coaches that he wanted to mention, Pat Riera and Charlie Palmer, one of the things they taught him was if one door closes, another opens. So if you have anything that's going wrong, whether it's in sports or in life, you have to remember that and keep pushing through. And we know he's going to do that to recover. So thank you. And again, proud to be here tonight.
So that concludes our program tonight. Before we leave, I'd like to make a quick shout out to all my Plainville High School friends in the back of the room. Thank you for coming, and we hope to see you next year on our 21st anniversary. So drive carefully, and thank you very much.